Lieutenant Anna Martinez stood at the observation deck of her ship, the Stellar Scout, staring into the endless darkness of the Kuiper Belt. 3 ships had vanished here in the past month. No debris, no distress signals, no explanations. Just silence. "Lieutenant, we're picking up some unusual readings." Officer Steve Murphy called from his station. His fingers moved quickly across the glowing display. "It's similar to the pattern we found near the last disappearance." Anna walked over to his station, her boots making soft sounds against the metal floor. The reading showed something they had never seen before, a sort of ripple in space, like waves in a pond. "Send a probe," she ordered. "Keep it at a safe distance." The small probe shot out from their ship, its lights blinking as it moved toward the strange ripple. The crew watched their screens carefully. Everything seemed normal until the probe reached the edge of the disturbance. "Ma'am, the probe's signals are changing," Steve said, his voice filled with surprise. "It's like it's sending data from multiple places at once." Before Anna could respond, their ship's alerts started blaring. Red lights flashed across the bridge as their sensors detected something big appearing nearby. Through the observation window, they saw it, a massive piece of metal floating in space. It wasn't there a moment ago. "Get me a visual," Anna commanded, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. The screen showed what looked like part of an ancient space station. Its surface was covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness of space. But what caught Anna's attention was a device attached to its side, something that looked almost new compared to the old station. "Ma'am, should we move closer?" Steve asked. Anna thought for a moment. 3 ships had already disappeared here. But something told her this was important. "Yes, but slowly. And keep our shields at maximum power." As they approached, their computers started translating the symbols on the station's surface. They weren't like anything in their database, but they followed patterns similar to math equations. "Lieutenant," called Dr. Amy Rogers, their science officer. "That device on the side. It's giving off energy readings similar to our engines, but different. I think it might be some kind of drive system." Anna made a decision. "Prepare a team for closer inspection. Full safety protocols. I'll lead it myself." 20 minutes later, Anna floated in space with 2 other crew members. Their suits' lights illuminated the ancient structure as they moved closer. The device looked even stranger up close. It had parts that seemed to fade in and out of existence. "Be careful," Anna warned as they approached. "Don't touch anything without scanning it first." Dr. Rogers' voice came through their comms. "The energy readings are getting stronger. Whatever that device is, it's still working after who knows how long." As they scanned the device, their equipment revealed something incredible. The machine wasn't just a drive system. It was something that could bend space itself. It created paths through what the sensors called void space, a place between normal space and somewhere else. "This is how they did it," Anna whispered, realization hitting her. "This is how the ships disappeared. They didn't crash or explode. They went through the void." Just then, their scans triggered something. The device hummed to life, its parts becoming more solid. Symbols across its surface lit up one by one, and a holographic display appeared in front of them. "Everyone, stay calm," Anna ordered, though her own heart was pounding. The display showed what looked like a map, but in 3 dimensions, with paths cutting through space in impossible ways. "Lieutenant," Steve's voice came through the comms, excited but nervous. "The computer's finishing the translation of those symbols. It's a manual. This thing is called a Void Walker. It was built by a civilization that called themselves the predecessors." Anna stared at the device in awe. This wasn't just a random discovery. This was technology that could change everything. If they could understand it, they might be able to find the missing ships. And more than that, they might have just found a way to revolutionize space travel. "Send all this data back to Earth Defense Fleet Command," she ordered. "And get me a secure channel to Chief Science Officer Daniel Powell." He needs to see this immediately. As her team continued their scans, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. They had found something incredible, yes, but why had the predecessors left it here? And why were the missing ships drawn to this place? The answers would come soon enough, but they wouldn't be what anyone expected. As Anna watched her team work, she didn't notice a slight shimmer in space behind them, like something moving through water, something watching. In the following days, Earth Defense Fleet Command assembled a special research team. The Void Walker device was carefully transported to a secure facility, where scientists worked day and night to understand its secrets. Anna's discovery had opened a door, but no one yet knew what waited on the other side. Chief Science Officer Powell arrived within a week, bringing with him the best minds in quantum physics and alien technology. As they studied the device, they began to understand its purpose. The predecessors hadn't just built a new type of engine. They had created a way to step outside of normal space entirely. Think of it like this, Powell explained during one briefing. If normal space is the surface of a pond, this device lets us dive under the water. We can move through the void beneath and come up anywhere we want. The implications were enormous. Ships using this technology could cross vast distances in moments. Space travel would never be the same. But as Anna watched the scientists work, she couldn't forget about the missing ships. Were they trapped somewhere in that void? And if they were, could they still be saved? 1 month after the discovery, they got their first answer. During a controlled test of the device, they picked up a signal, weak and distorted, but definitely human. It was coming from somewhere in the void, and it was asking for help. Anna knew then that her discovery was about to lead them on an incredible journey. But as she prepared for what would come next, she couldn't know that she had just opened the door to humanity's greatest adventure, and perhaps its greatest challenge. The Void Walkers were about to take their first steps into a new frontier, one that would test not just their technology, but their courage, their wisdom, and their very humanity. The real question wasn't whether they could master this new technology. It was whether they were ready for what they would find in the spaces between spaces. As Anna left the research facility that night, she looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3 ships and their crews were waiting to be found. And thanks to the Void Walker, they might finally have a chance to bring them home. Little did she know, they weren't the only ones waiting in the void, and not everything that walked between worlds was friendly to those who followed in their footsteps. The research vessel Starweaver floated in space near the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Inside its gleaming white laboratory, Chief Science Officer Daniel Powell watched as his team prepared for their first major test of the Void Walker technology. "All systems are ready," Laura Bennett said from her station. The quantum physicist hadn't slept much in the past week, too excited about the possibilities of their discovery. "The device is showing stable energy readings." Daniel nodded, his eyes moving between different screens showing complex data. They had spent 3 months studying the ancient technology, making sure they understood it well enough to use safely. Now it was time to see if their hard work would pay off. "Lieutenant Martinez, is your team ready?" he called over the ship's comm system. Anna's voice came back clear and strong. "Ready and waiting in the test pod, sir. Ryan's at the controls, and we're good to go." The test pod was a small ship they had built specially for these experiments. It sat in the Starweaver's launch bay, equipped with the reverse-engineered Void Walker technology. Ryan Cooper, their best pilot, would fly it while Anna monitored the systems. "Remember," Daniel said, "this is just a short jump, 5 seconds in the void, then back out. If anything feels wrong, abort immediately." "Understood," Ryan replied. His voice was calm, but everyone knew the risks. They had no idea what it would feel like to step outside of normal space. Laura started the countdown. "Test beginning in 10, 9, 8. Daniel held his breath. They had done everything possible to make this safe, but they were still stepping into the unknown. 3, 2, 1. Activate. The test pod glowed with a soft blue light. For a moment, Nothing seemed to happen. Then, like a stone dropping into water, the pod seemed to sink into space itself. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone. Pod has entered void space, Laura announced, her eyes fixed on her readings. All systems normal. 4 seconds remaining. The seconds felt like hours. Daniel counted them in his head, praying they hadn't just sent 2 of their best people to their death. Time's up, Laura said. They should be coming back. Now. Right on schedule, space rippled, and the pod reappeared. It looked exactly the same as before, floating peacefully in space. Test pod, report, Daniel called, trying to keep his voice steady. There was a moment of silence that made everyone nervous. Then Anna's voice came through, filled with wonder. "Sir, you're not going to believe what we just saw." The next hour was filled with excitement as Anna and Ryan described their experience. The void wasn't empty darkness like they had expected. It was filled with streams of energy, like rivers of light flowing through space. "It was beautiful," Ryan said during the debriefing. "When we were in there, I could see paths everywhere. It was like seeing a map of the whole universe laid out in front of us." "And the missing ships?" Daniel asked. Everyone grew quiet, waiting for the answer. Anna's face turned serious. "We picked up traces of them. Real, clear traces. They're out there somewhere in the void. But," she paused, looking troubled, "we also saw something else. Like shadows moving through the lights. Something's in there with them." Daniel shared a look with Laura. They had wondered if they might find signs of the predecessors who built the Void Walker. But shadows in the void, that was unexpected. "We need to try a longer jump," Anna said firmly. "Now that we know it works, we can start looking for the missing ships properly." Daniel wanted to be cautious, but he knew she was right. They had 3 ships full of people counting on them. "All right," he agreed. "But first we make some adjustments. Laura, what did the sensors show?" The next few days were busy with preparations. They improved the pod sensors based on what they had learned. Laura worked on ways to track the energy streams they had seen, hoping they could be used like roads through the void. A week later, they were ready for their second test. This time, they would stay in the void for a full minute, long enough to really look around. "Remember," Daniel told the team, "our goal is to map the void and look for signs of our missing people. Don't take any unnecessary risks." The second test started just like the first. The pod disappeared into the void smoothly. But 30 seconds in, something changed. "Sir," Laura called out, her voice tense, "I'm picking up a signal. It's one of ours." Daniel rushed to her station. The readings were clear. Somewhere in the void, one of the missing ships was calling for help. "Pod team, are you receiving this?" he asked. "We see it," Anna replied. "The signal's coming from. It's hard to explain. It's like it's in a bubble of normal space inside the void. We can get to it, but what? Those shadows we saw before. They're moving toward it. Whatever they are, they know we're here." Daniel had to make a quick decision. The mission was supposed to be just observation, but they had finally found what they were looking for. Could they really turn back now? "How long would it take to reach the signal?" he asked. 2 minutes through the void, Ryan answered. "We have enough power. We can do this." Daniel thought about the families of the missing crew members, waiting months for news. "All right," he said, "but be careful. At the first sign of real danger, you come back immediately." The pod changed direction in the void, moving toward the signal. On the Starweaver, everyone watched their screens nervously. The shadow shapes seemed to be getting closer to the pod, but still keeping their distance. "Almost there," Anna reported. "We can see something ahead. It looks like—" "Wait. Oh my God. What is it?" Daniel asked, his heart racing. "It's the Phoenix," Anna said quietly. "We found her. The crew. They're alive. They're in some kind of stasis. But sir, they're not alone. Something's been watching them, and now it's watching us too. The pod's cameras showed it clearly. One of the missing ships, floating in a bubble of normal space inside the void. But around it, moving like oil and water, were shapes that couldn't exist. Things that had no real form, but were definitely alive. The test pod hovered in the void near the trapped ship Phoenix. Shadow creatures moved around them like dark clouds in a storm. Inside the pod, Anna Martinez and Ryan Cooper watched their screens carefully, looking for any sign that the shadows might attack. "Main ship, are you getting these readings?" Anna asked, her voice steady despite her fear. "We see them," Daniel Powell replied from the Starweaver. "The shadows seem to be made of void energy. They're alive, but not like anything we've ever seen before." Ryan kept his hands on the controls, ready to move if the shadows came too close. "The Phoenix's crew is still in stasis," he reported. "Their life support systems are working, but they won't last much longer." Laura Bennett's voice came through their comm system. "The bubble of normal space around the Phoenix is stable. If we can match its frequency with our Void Walker device, we might be able to create a safe path for rescue." Anna looked at the shadow creatures again. They hadn't attacked yet, but they were getting closer. "We need to move fast," she said. "Ryan, take us in closer. Laura, guide us through the frequency matching." The test pod moved slowly toward the Phoenix. The shadow creatures followed but kept their distance, like curious animals watching something new. Through the pod's windows, Anna could see the frozen faces of the Phoenix's crew through their ship's windows. "Frequency matching starting," Laura announced. "Hold steady. This will take a few minutes." Those minutes felt like hours. The shadows circled closer, their shapes changing like smoke in the wind. Anna noticed they seemed more solid when they got near the ships, as if they were trying to copy solid objects. "Look at this," Ryan said quietly, pointing to his screen. "The shadows. They're not just watching us. They're learning from us." He was right. Each time a shadow got close to their pod, its shape became more like a ship. They were copying what they saw, becoming more like the things they watched. "Frequency match complete," Laura called out. "You can start the rescue now. But hurry, the path won't last long." Anna activated their rescue system. A beam of blue light shot from the pod to the Phoenix, creating a bridge of normal space between them. The shadows pulled back, as if the light hurt them. "Beginning crew transfer," Anna reported. She pressed the buttons that would wake the Phoenix's crew from stasis and guide them to safety. "First group is moving now." Through the light bridge, they could see the Phoenix's crew members floating across in their spacesuits. They moved slowly, clearly confused after months in stasis, but they were alive, and they were getting out. Then something went wrong. One of the shadow creatures, bigger than the others, moved toward the light bridge. Its shape changed until it looked almost human, but twisted and wrong. "It's trying to use the bridge," Ryan shouted, turning the pod's defense systems on. "We need to close it." "Not yet," Anna said firmly. "We still have crew members to save." The shadow creature reached for the bridge. Where it touched the light, the space around it rippled like disturbed water. More shadows moved closer, all of them changing shape. 3 more crew members to go, Anna reported, watching the rescue carefully. 2, 1. The last crew member made it across just as the big shadow creature touched the bridge. The whole structure of light shook, and warning alarms filled the pod. "Close it now," Daniel ordered from the Starweaver. Ryan shut down the bridge instantly. The shadow creature pulled back, its human-like shape melting away. But Anna saw something in its movements that worried her. It wasn't attacking. It was practicing. "All Phoenix crew members are safe," she reported. "But sir, I think we have a bigger problem than we thought." Back on the Starweaver, the rescued crew told their story. Their ship had accidentally entered the void during a routine flight. They found themselves trapped in a bubble of normal space, unable to escape. The shadow creatures, which they called Void Stalkers, had kept them there, watching and learning from them. "They're intelligent," said Lily Morris, the Phoenix's captain. "They've been studying us, trying to understand how we move through solid space. I think they want to learn how to enter our world." Daniel looked troubled by this news. The predecessors must have known about these creatures. They must have had a reason for leaving their technology where we would find it. "Maybe they were trying to warn us," Laura suggested. "Or maybe they needed our help with something." Before they could discuss it more, alarms started ringing through the ship. Laura rushed to her station, checking the readings. "Sir, the Void Stalkers, they're changing the void around us. The energy patterns are shifting. It's like they're building something." On their screens, they could see the shadow creatures gathering in huge numbers. Their shapes kept changing, becoming more and more like ships and human forms. They were preparing for something, but what? "We need to find the other missing ships fast," Anna said, "before these creatures figure out how to follow us into normal space." Daniel nodded. "Agreed. But we also need to understand what the predecessors were trying to tell us. There must be more to this story." As they prepared for their next rescue mission, Anna watched the Void Stalkers through the ship's cameras. They were learning so quickly, adapting to everything they saw. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The rescue of the Phoenix was just the beginning. They had saved one crew, but 2 ships were still missing. And now they knew they weren't just fighting against time. They were racing against creatures that wanted to follow them home. The Void had kept its secrets for thousands of years. Now those secrets were awake, aware, and very interested in the world of solid space. The question wasn't just whether they could save the other missing ships. It was whether they could do it without letting something terrible into their universe. Dr. Catherine Harris stood in the Starweaver's research lab, studying the strange symbols they had found on another piece of predecessor technology. After rescuing the Phoenix crew, they had discovered more ancient devices floating in the void. Each one was covered in the same mysterious writing. "I think I'm starting to understand," she said, drawing Daniel Powell's attention. "These aren't just random markings. They're telling a story." Daniel walked over to her screen, where 3-dimensional images of the symbols floated like glowing blue ghosts. "What kind of story?" "A warning." Catherine pointed to a series of repeating patterns. The predecessors didn't just leave their technology behind. They left messages explaining why they abandoned it. Before she could explain more, Laura Bennett rushed into the lab. "We found another ship," she said, catching her breath. "The Northern Star. It's trapped in a void bubble like the Phoenix was." Daniel quickly called Anna Martinez to the lab. When she arrived, Catherine shared what she had learned. "The Void Stalkers weren't always like this," Catherine explained, showing them the translated symbols. "They used to be solid, like us, but they found a way to step outside of normal space, just like we're doing now. They stayed in the void too long, and it changed them." "Changed them how?" Anna asked, though she had a feeling she knew the answer. "They forgot how to be solid," Catherine said. "They forgot their own shapes. Now they copy whatever they see, trying to remember what they used to be. And they're lonely. They want to find a way back to normal space." Laura looked worried. "Is that why they're keeping our ships? Are they trying to learn how to be solid again?" "Yes," Catherine nodded. "But there's more. The predecessors discovered that the longer we use void technology, the more we attract the Void Stalkers' attention. And if too many of them gather in one place—" She didn't need to finish. They had all seen how the shadow creatures were gathering, building something in the void. Learning. Practicing. "We need to rescue the Northern Star," Anna said firmly. "But we have to be more careful this time. No light bridges. No direct contact." Daniel agreed. "Laura, can you modify our void engines to create a bigger bubble of normal space? Something that could surround both ships?" Laura thought for a moment. "Yes, but it would take a lot of power. And it might attract more Void Stalkers." "Do it," Daniel ordered. "Catherine, keep working on those translations. There might be more information we need. The next few hours were busy with preparations. Laura adjusted their engines while Catherine studied the ancient messages. Anna and Ryan got ready for another rescue mission. Just before they launched, Catherine made another discovery. "Look at this," she called everyone to her screen. The predecessors built special devices, beacons that could keep the Void Stalkers away. But they're not working anymore. That's why the shadows are getting closer. "Can we fix them?" Daniel asked. "Maybe. The plans are here in the warnings. But it would take time, and the Void Stalkers are getting stronger every day." Anna looked at the images of the shadow creatures on their monitors. They were definitely getting better at copying solid shapes. Some of them now looked almost exactly like ships or space stations. "We don't have much time," she said. "Those things are learning too fast. We need to get our people out now." The rescue mission launched an hour later. The test pod, now modified with Laura's new engines, moved through the void toward the northern star. The shadow creatures followed them, but kept their distance. "Something's different," Ryan said as he piloted the pod. "They're more organized now. Look how they move together." He was right. The Void Stalkers weren't just copying shapes anymore. They were copying behavior too. They moved in formation, like a fleet of ships. "Northern star in sight," Anna reported. "Starting bubble expansion." Their modified engine hummed to life, creating a larger sphere of normal space around them. They carefully expanded it until it reached the northern star. But the Void Stalkers had learned from last time. As soon as the bubble began to grow, they moved to surround it. Their shapes shifted and changed, becoming more solid where they touched the edge of normal space. "They're trying to break through," Laura warned from the Starweaver. "The bubble won't hold for long." Inside the northern star, they could see the crew beginning to wake from stasis, but they were moving too slowly. The shadow creatures pressed against the bubble, their forms becoming more and more solid. "Look at their patterns," Catherine said suddenly. "They're not just copying us anymore. They're using predecessor technology. They've learned how to use the beacons." She was right. Some of the shadow creatures had taken the shape of the ancient warning beacons, but instead of pushing the Void Stalkers away, these copies were helping them press against the bubble of normal space. "Hurry," Anna called to the Northern Star's crew. "We can't hold them back much longer." The crew floated across the space between ships as fast as they could. Behind them, the shadow creatures continued their assault on the bubble. Small cracks began to appear in the barrier between void space and normal space. "Last crew member almost here," Ryan reported. "But the bubble's failing. We need to pull back now." As soon as the final crew member was safe, they retreated. The bubble collapsed behind them, and the shadow creatures rushed into the empty space. Back on the Starweaver, Catherine shared more of what she had translated. "The predecessors didn't just leave because of the Void Stalkers," she explained. "They left because using the Void technology was making things worse. The more they used it, the stronger the shadows became." "So what do we do?" Laura asked. "We still have one more ship to find." Daniel looked at the images of the shadow creatures, now almost perfect copies of ships and stations. "We have two choices," he said. "Either we stop using the Void technology completely, or we find a way to fix those ancient beacons." Anna finished. "Before the Void Stalkers figure out how to follow us home." As they talked, the shadow creatures continued their work in the void. Building, learning, waiting. The race to save the last ship had become more than a rescue mission. It had become a race to save their whole universe from what waited in the space between spaces. Commander Anna Martinez stood on the bridge of the Starweaver, looking at the holographic display of void space. Red dots showed where thousands of Void Stalkers were gathering. In the center of their formation was the last missing ship, the Morning Light. "The shadow creatures have changed their strategy," Engineer Peter Nash said, pointing to the display. "They're not just watching anymore. They're using the broken predecessor beacons to create their own bubbles of space." Anna nodded. In the week since they had rescued the Northern Star, The Void Stalkers had learned more than anyone thought possible. They weren't just copying shapes now. They were building things. How long until they figure out how to enter normal space? She asked. Days, maybe hours. Catherine Harris answered from her station. She had finally translated all the predecessor warnings. They're using everything they've learned from watching us. And they're using the Morning Lights crew as practice. Dangle Powell walked onto the bridge, carrying a small device. Then we'll have to move fast. Peter's team has finished rebuilding one of the ancient beacons. If it works, we can use it to push the shadows back. Laura Bennett looked up from her calculations. But we'll need more than one beacon. The predecessors used hundreds of them to create safe travel corridors through the void. Then we'll build more, Anna said firmly. How many can we make with the materials we have? Peter checked his tablet. 12. Maybe 15 if we use everything. But Commander, there's something else you need to know. He pressed some buttons on his screen, showing a new image. It was a simulation of what would happen when they activated the beacons. The beacons don't just push the shadows away, he explained. They create permanent barriers in the void. Once we turn them on, those areas will be closed off forever. We'll be trapping the Void Stalkers in their own space. Anna understood what this meant. They could save the Morning Lights crew and protect normal space from the shadow creatures. But they would also be taking away any chance the Void Stalkers had of returning to solid form. They're not evil, Catherine reminded everyone. They're just lost. They've been trapped in the void for so long, they've forgotten what they used to be. That's why they keep our ships. They're trying to remember. Before Anna could respond, alarms started blaring through the ship. Laura rushed to check her instruments. The Void Stalkers, they're doing something new, she called out. They're combining their copied shapes, merging them together. On the main screen, they watched as hundreds of shadow creatures flowed together. They were building something massive, using all the forms they had copied from human ships and predecessor technology. It's a void gate, Daniel realized. They're trying to build a permanent way into normal space. Anna made her decision. Launch the rescue mission. Now, Peter, get those beacons ready. We're going to save our people and protect our space, even if it means trapping the shadows forever. The next hour was filled with careful preparation. They loaded the beacons onto their pod and planned where to place them. They would create a ring of barriers, cutting off the section of void where the shadow creatures were gathering. Remember, Anna told Ryan as they prepared to launch, we only get one chance at this. If we fail, we won't fail, Ryan said confidently. Those are our people out there. We're bringing them home. The rescue mission began. Their pod entered the void, carrying both the beacons and their hopes. The shadow creatures were so busy building their gate that they didn't notice the pod at first. Beginning beacon placement, Peter reported. He worked quickly, setting up the devices in a wide circle around the gathering shadows. Each one needs 2 minutes to power up. Anna watched the Void Stalkers carefully. They were almost finished with their gate. Through gaps in their swirling forms, she could see the Morning Light and its crew, still trapped in their bubble of normal space. Beacons at 50% power, Peter called out. They're starting to notice us. The shadow creatures finally sensed what was happening. They sent shapes that looked like ships to investigate the beacons, but they moved cautiously, as if they knew what the devices could do. We need more time, Peter said. The beacons aren't ready. Anna made another quick decision. Ryan, take us closer to their gate. Get their attention. What are you thinking, Commander? Laura asked from the Starweaver. The Void Stalkers are curious. They want to learn. So let's give them something new to study. Ryan piloted their pod right up to the half-built void gate. Just as Anna expected, the shadow creatures couldn't resist coming to look. They surrounded the pod, trying to copy its shape, forgetting about the beacons. 70% power, Peter reported. Just a little longer. Suddenly, one of the shadow creatures changed its shape. Instead of copying their ship, it took a form they had never seen before. something beautiful and strange that might have been its original shape from before it entered the void. More shadow creatures followed, showing shapes that could have been their true forms. It was like they were trying to communicate, to show who they really were. 90%, Peter said quietly. Commander, are we sure about this? Anna watched the shadow creatures dancing around their ship, sharing their lost memories. For a moment, she hesitated. But then she saw the void gate, nearly complete, and knew what had to be done. Beacons at full power, Peter announced. Ready on your command. Anna took a deep breath. Get the Morning Light's crew first, then activate the beacons. They moved fast. Their pod reached the trapped ship and created a quick bubble of normal space. The crew, already awake and waiting, moved quickly to safety. Now, Anna ordered as soon as the last crew member was aboard. Peter activated the beacons. Walls of golden light shot up between them, cutting through the void like shining blades. The shadow creatures pulled back, their borrowed shapes melting away. It's working, Laura called from the Starweaver. The barriers are stable. The void stalkers can't get through. They watched as the shadow creatures gathered on the other side of the barrier. They weren't attacking or trying to break through. Instead, they changed their shapes one last time, showing their original forms again. It looked almost like they were saying goodbye. As they flew back to normal space, Anna looked at the barrier behind them. The void gate the shadows had tried to build was cut in half, never to be completed. The void stalkers were trapped in their own space forever, but normal space was safe. Back on the Starweaver, Catherine made one final translation of the predecessor warnings. They knew this would happen, she said. They knew we would have to make this choice. That's why they left their technology where we would find it. Did we do the right thing? Laura asked, watching the shadows move behind the golden barriers. Anna thought about the shapes the creatures had shown them at the end, their true forms preserved in memory even after so long in the void. We protected our space and our people, she said, but we also made sure they can't hurt themselves by trying to be something they're not anymore. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is help others accept what they've become. As the Starweaver turned toward home, the barriers continued to shine in the void, separating two forms of life that could never truly exist in the same space. The void stalkers had lost their chance to return to solid form, but they had kept their memories, and in the end, that was its own kind of victory.